G'day guys, welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Saturday, February the 8th, 2025, and geez, it's a cool one today. It was just a Victorian weather, fair income. Hot one day, cool the next. Could almost put a hoodie on this morning, but anyway, tomorrow I'll be complaining it's too hot. Alright, well, it was on, it was off, it is on again, apparently. Until tomorrow, we'll see what happens. I'm speaking about Canelo Alvarez. He was fighting Crawford in September in Las Vegas. The fight was off pretty much the next day. And then yesterday it was announced that it's back on again, but this time, actually it will still be in Vegas, sorry, but Canelo Alvarez has signed a 4-fight deal with Turkey LL Sheikh and Riyadh Season. So the Jake Paul thing was off and then on, and now it's off again, which is probably the good news, probably the best news I've had this year in this short time we've been in 2025. I'm so glad and relieved today that the Canelo Alvarez and Jake Paul fight isn't happening. You got to wonder what exactly has been said and done and exchanged between the two parties, where so much has happened in the last 3 days, and I said this yesterday, but the biggest thing for me is that most of this has played out on the Ring Magazine's website. Now, of course, Turkey LL Sheikh owns a Ring Magazine, so he is across everything. Nothing would be getting reported without, you would think, the go-ahead of, not that Turkey LL Sheikh, I'm sure, looks over everything, but news wouldn't be broken unless it came down that it was all good to do so. So that's the most intriguing thing for me. They released, 3 days ago, 4 days ago, whatever it was, that Crawford and Canelo was done for September in Vegas. The following day, this is on the Ring Magazine, the next day the fight is off, and now he's going to fight Jake Paul. Negotiations are done, it's pretty much set. We had Eddie Hearn even coming out and saying the fight is done as far as he knows. And then the next day, the Jake Paul fight is off and Canelo Alvarez has signed the 4-fight deal. Totally bizarre, fair income, and it was actually good in some respect to see old mate Jake Paul absolutely crack a wobbly on social media. He was obviously, this is probably the other bizarre thing about it, is this fight actually was going to happen, because I was still hoping it was all a joke, but in his mind, judging by what he said on social media, he was under the impression that the fight was done, and he cut loose on Canelo on social media, saying that, you know, Jake Paul is the face of boxing and Canelo's a slave. That was the other thing he said. And look out, I'm looking at other big names in 2025 and all that sort of stuff. I'm just hoping this is, I think, a good thing in that finally maybe Jake Paul has got the hint that the real fighters couldn't give two shits about him and aren't interested in him, and especially someone like Canelo Alvarez, where money is not the issue. And yeah, he could have probably made $100 million fighting Jake Paul. You'll probably still make 50 or 60 fighting Terence Crawford. I know it's a big jump, but when you're worth probably $300 or $400 million, you know, it's money's, I was going to say it's not everything, it is to these guys, but you get what I'm saying. Is 20 or 30 million really going to make a massive difference in Canelo's life once he retires, once he probably retires with 500 million under his belt? So anyway, but yeah, so that is the state of play as of today. Now, the 4-fight deal will be, this is the other strange thing, he won't be in Las Vegas for Cinco de Mayo weekend on May the 3rd. That is now off the table. He will now fight, still in May, but in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So no opponents discussed just yet for the May fight. You would think that, I think it's going to be someone like a William Skull. They were talking someone like a Bruno Saras. He's the one that knocked out Jaime Munguia. That fight, I was just going to say, makes a lot of sense, but I'm pretty sure that Saras might have actually signed to fight Munguia in the rematch, or Munguia has executed his rematch clause, so maybe that fight might be off the table. So you get a feeling it could be William Skull, although Jamal Charlo's name has also been mentioned, which I hope is not the case as well. Look, I'm going to say it's going to be better than him fighting Jake Paul whenever. But Jamal Charlo, I mean, he's in semi-retirement. He had one fight in about 4 years. Didn't look overly impressive when he did fight and beat Benavides. What card was that on? That would have been a year and a half ago, whatever it was. Yeah, I'm just not sure that is the answer. However, maybe they're just looking to showcase Canelo in Saudi Arabia, not really stressed about the opponent. They just want to get him over there, get this fight under his belt, and then the Crawford fight in September in Las Vegas. So that will take place, looks like the second week of September at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. And then he will probably go against, or he will go against his normal routine and tradition. He won't fight next year in May, it'll be in February, but that will be back in Saudi Arabia, and then again in October in Saudi Arabia. And you've got a feeling, what's that, 4 fights in sort of 2 years? We could be getting close to the end of Canelo's career by then, because surely there's not, apart from Crawford, I'm not so sure I can even think of 3 other opponents for him to sort of fight. This year, there might be, as I said, there might be a Skull or Sarasi or someone for May. Who does he fight next year? Who's coming through that's sort of on the Riyadh season sort of stable that he could probably fight next year? I'm sure they'll find someone, of course. It's Canelo Alvarez. And if you're offer someone a $10 million purse, well, I'm sure you're going to get someone to come out. But yeah, it's fascinating times. Look, but all things aside, with all these sort of rumours and all this innuendo and stuff, I'm just actually finally glad, all things aside, that this has happened. I'm a pretty happy man this morning, thinking that, or knowing that the Jake Paul thing won't happen. That's probably the best news of all, because I just think it would be an absolute circus and a real dent in Canelo's legacy. And then to sign a 4-fight deal with the biggest promoter in the sport at the moment, I think it's fantastic. And I've sort of got a feeling, talking about being on, off, on again, and maybe off again, who knows, but I've got a feeling with the whole Jake Paul thing and even the Crawford thing, I've got a feeling that what happened is that there was lots of sort of things in the air, lots of balls in the air, as they say, and maybe the Crawford fight was sort of done, which is why it was leaked onto the website, and then of course everyone else picked it up. Then maybe there might have been a bit of a hitch or glitch, whatever you might want to call, maybe in a couple of things, and they've just said, all right, that's it, forget about it, we'll go with Jake Paul, and that might have been the other fight going on, and then they've come back to the table and agreed to a few different terms, who knows, and maybe with the Jake Paul fight as well, maybe what's happened there is they've leaked it just to get a response from the public, just to see what the public were thinking and whether they would go for the fight. And maybe the tsunami of negative responses has resulted in them saying, let's just scrap that real quick, because that's not going to go down well. Which is why maybe Jake Paul wasn't happy either, because he was under the impression that it was going to happen. But anyway, all things aside, we have Canelo Alvarez. Things are okay with the universe again, the boxing universe, signing a 4-fight deal with Turki Al Sheikh, and we have a fight in May in Riyadh, a fight in Las Vegas in September, and then 2 fights in Riyadh next year for Riyadh season in February and October. So all good there. Some other stuff. I saw George Kambosos on Facebook yesterday in the Australian Boxing Central. Noonan Boy, of course, runs that. And the promo, really good promo for the fight. George and his dad Jim have done extensive interviews with everyone. I'll give it to them. They know how to talk up a fight. Oh, Jim, yeah, you would think that it's George Kambosos fighting Canelo, fair dinkum. And I like that about him. You've got to have that. You can't just get on there and roll out the usual, we're hoping that George gets the win, and it's good to see him back, and let's hope he can get things back on track and hopefully get a world title fight. No, he's like, no guys, we're coming for it all, and your Dan is former 2-time champion, and he can fight. We were going to fight him a few years ago, and now it's going to happen, and we're going to take care of business and all this sort of stuff. I love it. I really do. Doesn't make me any more excited about the fight, but I just love the fact that we've got these types of characters in Aussie boxing. And George Kambosos, look, like him or not, he does talk a big game. He talks himself up, and I like that too. And regardless whether you like him as a person or a fighter, you've got to give him his accolades that he knows how to build a fight 100%. And you've got to remember too, George has done all this without a lot of help. This is one thing I do admire about George. He's done a lot of this by himself. He went overseas. This is when even the No Limit and all that sort of stuff was happening, or was in its sort of formative sort of phase when they had Tim Tszyu coming through. He chose his own path, went overseas, become the road warrior, and really earned his shot at Teofimo Lopez. And without all the fanfare back home, and without all the easy fights back home, and all the media bullshit that they blow up people's asses these days over here, and he did it his way and took his chance and won those titles. And yeah, okay, it's arguable that he's lost every fight since, but whatever. He did it, and that's why I admire George. And again, I love the fact he loves to talk himself up, loves to talk his opponents up, loves to talk up his achievements, and I just think it's fantastic. And you can see where he's got it from, because his dad is just the same. Fantastic. And if you've ever met Jim Kambosos, he's a real character and goes out of his way to shake your hand and have a chat. A really, really good guy. The interesting thing also, this is what I was sort of getting at when I saw the promo, was that I'm not sure it was an old interview or a new interview by Noonan Boy on Australian Boxing Central with Eddie Hearn. And he's talking about, you know, coming back to Australia, and they've dipped the toe in the water and really looking forward to coming back and doing the thing over here. And it got me thinking, well, what he said got me thinking about, geez, what happens if he really gets serious about getting his teeth into the Australian market? Because he said, hey, we've got Jai Pataya, we've got George Kambosos, we've got Liam Paro, we've got Justice Honey, we've got Terramona, we've got Sky Nicholson. And as he's reeling off these names, I'm thinking, geez, he's got, and Connor Wallace was the other one as well. If they have got, well, without doubt, the best stable in Australian boxing, and that includes No Limit. You know, I know they've got Tim and Nikita, but they've obviously got some issues at the moment. Apart from that, not a lot. Sam Goodman, of course, you could probably put in that basket, maybe Liam Wilson as well, but that is nothing compared to the Matchroom stable / Tasman stable. So it's going to get interesting this year, I think. If Eddie Hearn and Mick Francis get serious about doing what they said they're going to do, we could have a real interesting 2025, especially with what's happening with the TV. But what a stable that is. Opataya, Kambosos, Paro, Connor Wallace, Justice Honey, Sky Nicholson, and I'm sure they'll have others coming, which is what he sort of hinted at as well. So some interesting times for Aussie boxing, some exciting times for Aussie boxing. I love it and can't wait. Now, one other thing before I go today, I was reading an American site somewhere, and he was going on about, you know, the Super Bowls on Monday and talking about hope it's a good game without controversy and whatever. And then he started to go into some of the controversies over the journey in boxing, because he had a bit of a whinge about some stuff that's happened in the NFL. I don't know, don't care, but it sort of brought up some points, some comparisons in world boxing, things that have happened over the journey, controversial things, and some of the things that was really good. And I just thought I'd bring up sort of my opinions on it. And he had a couple, I think there's 3 or 4 different categories. The most controversial decision ever. Now, is there a difference between the worst decision of all time or the most controversial decision of all time? And I'll just sort of explain the differences there. I mean, I think that the worst decision that I've ever seen in my lifetime, and I'm only talking about my lifetime here, by the way, I can't go back to the 20s and 30s because I didn't see the fights and I wasn't there. Well, I've seen some highlights on a lot of them, but I haven't seen the fight and I wasn't part of it then as far as the reaction to it goes. But in my lifetime, the worst decision I've ever seen is probably 2. One is the Jeff Fenech Azuma Nelson first fight, without doubt. And then the other one is probably Julio Cesar Chavez and that draw against Pernell Whitaker. So they're probably the 2 worst decisions I've ever seen. The most controversial decision I've ever seen is probably the Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvelous Marvin Hagler fight from 1987. And to this day, people still debate about it whenever it comes up on social media or whatever it might be. People debate it. I've done videos on it myself when we did the Watch Your Verdict, and to this day it still rages on. So I would think that would be the most controversial decision where people still talk about it. The other one was the most controversial count. Now I think he might have said Gene Tunney and Jack Dempsey back in the day, the long count. I'm going to go, of course, it's one. For me, it's James Buster Douglas when he went down for 14 seconds or 15 seconds against Mike Tyson and pretty much changed boxing history. So that's probably the most controversial count I've seen in my time. I'm sure there's some others out there. The most controversial stoppage, I think that's a pretty easy one as well. Julio Cesar Chavez over Meldrick Taylor. That would have to be the most controversial stoppage of all time, I would think. What was another one he said there? The most controversial, was there a fighter? I think that would have to be Mike Tyson, wouldn't it? The most controversial fighter of all time. The guy that just pulverised opponents, but he also pulverised or divided, or whatever it might be, the boxing public on the type of person that he was, and the other, of course, his legacy in the ring. Whenever his name gets brought up, as far as legacies goes, his is always the most debated, is Mike Tyson. And I'm one of the ones that are for him as being easily in the top 10 of all time, but there's others that said he was overhyped, a hype job basically. So yeah, so anyway, there's some different controversial calls, but have a look at it yourself. I can't remember what site it's on, but I'm sure you'll find it if you look hard enough. But I might do a video on that, some other controversial times in boxing over the journey. But that is it for today. I hope you have a great weekend, and we will catch you tomorrow.